Stop trying to copy Pamela Anderson's style and do this instead. I'm Shani Ra, and here is my train of thought on Pamela Anderson's style. Pamela Anderson recently told Women's Wear Daily that reinvention is the key to eternal youth.
I don't know, something just kind of came over me, and I was dressing in these beautiful clothes, and I thought, I don't want to compete with the clothes. I'm not trying to be the prettiest girl in the room. I feel like it's just freedom. It's like a relief.
When it comes to people like Pamela, who have had a very strong pop culture defining look and then reinvented themselves, or anyone with any type of reinvention really, I'm really interested in how one state informs the other. Through this reinvention, Pamela avoids becoming stuck as a caricature like other fellow bombshells, Angeline the Billboard Queen, the Los Angeles legend who paid to have billboards of herself advertising simply herself and her beauty all over LA, and was famous for just driving around in her pink Corvette, which she still drives around in today. And because of beauty standards, she often hides her face with a fan and doesn't like to be fully seen. Anna Nicole Smith, the model, actress, and victim to the whirlwind that is Hollywood. She was labelled as a dumb blonde and a gold digger, and a kind of a victim of early reality television as well. Her story is very famous, I'm sure you know it. Or La Cicciolina, who was an adult actress who then became the subject of Jeff Koons' art project called Made in Heaven for the Whitney Museum that was supposed to be in the style of Edouard Manet. She later married Jeff Koons. They divorced, she went into politics and was representing the Italian Radical Party. If you look at her current socials, she often appears heavily filtered and face-tuned. And I just think the thing that these three women have in common is kind of hiding or meeting their demise because of these unrealistic standards, and also the caricature that the world made them into, that they couldn't escape. Pamela escaped, and fashion was her vessel to do so. From the whirlwind of heavy metal and Baywatch that begat this look that Pamela felt completely trapped by, the journey of self-discovery and natural beauty that we find her on now, the thread that runs throughout all of this is this honest, free-spirited, rebellious embodiment of romance. I noticed that Pamela now opts for silhouettes that kind of wrap around and bundle her up and go all the way to the neck. And I quite like the idea of that. While it's the most covered up we've ever seen her, it's the most we're really seeing her. It never appears that she's hiding. It's the perfect example of reveal and conceal. In some ways, we're seeing her for the very first time. Someone who did see something in her was Karl Lagerfeld. In 2019, he urged that she attend his spring-summer show, which was à la plage, at the beach. He had built a beach in the Grand Palais. We need more of that at Chanel. And the reason he was so adamant that she attended is because he said the collection was designed for women like Pamela. So obviously I had to go back and look through this collection, and it's quite cool because there's quite a few looks that I could definitely see her wearing today. All of these are that sort of fun, eccentric aunt that is really glowy and beautiful and free and lives at the beach. She absolutely reminds me of a herd of big blonde wild horses galloping into the sea. And if you're interested, here's what she actually wore to the show in 2019. Just a couple of years before that hideous series came out, which was kind of the catalyst for Pamela to take control over her own life, career and image. But this is all what Karl saw in Pamela. And the reason we're here today is to talk about the rejection of the male gaze. What does Pamela see in herself? She is by no means the first person to ever reject beauty standards. Most recently, we see it in Julia Fox, who turns look after look and gives us an endless stream of experimental and artful outfits that have completely decentered the man, and she is not shy to talk about her disdain for the male species. Vivienne Westwood is somebody else who has been quite open about how they find standards beauty tiresome, boring, uninteresting. And Pamela is actually a Vivienne Westwood muse. They have worked together numerous times and were longtime friends. The campaign images were shot by Jürgen Teller, and you can see the way Pamela is captured by Vivienne is still very sexy, because at the time of these shows and shoots, that was still very much the Pamela brand, but Vivienne has shaken it up and let her be more messy, more dishevelled, more unkempt, more wild, and kind of displayed her as this renegade woman.
I love this hat. I love this silhouette because this is a true Vivienne style, but it's Andreas, you know? So we have the skirt and then the big shoulders, and this, you know, this the kind of Vivienne suit, and I'll wear these shoes with some tights. But they're beautiful.
Sinead O'Connor famously shaved her head after music industry heads were trying to pressure her to grow her hair longer and dress in a more palatable way, obviously to cater to men and look sexier and more aspirational to women. This article that was on CNN about Sinead O'Connor and her buzz cut and really the history of women and buzz cuts is actually a really interesting read. And they talk about how even in the 18th century in France, women would shave their heads as a sign of solidarity with their friends that were being executed, and the buzz cut was named à la victime because victims of the guillotine would often have their heads shaved for ease. I would highly recommend you read that full article. We also saw in the Black Panthers the women would grow out their natural hair, and that was an act of resistance against white beauty standards, European beauty standards. And while Pamela Anderson may still have her signature blonde lock, her going barefaced at the age she is, in the industry she's in, and specifically with the history that she has in the press after they've belittled her, made a joke out of her, sold her intimate videos, and honestly tried to make a mockery out of her, it's resistance. But speaking of those famous blonde locks, her signature messy updo that's become very fashionable again in the last couple of years, she revealed was often held in place by a spare G-string.
Don't tell me that you don't have a scrunchie. This is the trick of the trade. We're really flashing back to the 90s. The tousled updo always had a pair of panties in them.
That sentiment really reminded me of Miuccia Prada, not because Miuccia Prada does her hair with a G-string, but because she designs for a woman who's not afraid to be a bit unkempt, a bit creased, a bit disheveled, and we've seen that repeatedly in Prada collections over the years. I liked the quote where she said that she designs clothes that have traces of living, and that idea really reminds me of Pamela, who now likes to be her own makeup artist, her own stylist, wear things from her own wardrobe, do her own hair. It's very DIY, her new image.
I don't need a stylist. Like, I don't have a stylist, I don't have a glam team, I'm just kind of doing this freestyle.
Stylist Lotte Volkova, who styles the Miu Miu shows and campaigns, is a master at creating this seemingly thrown together haphazard image that shouldn't work, but it really works. Although those looks are meticulously put together and curated, Pamela's style is all about ease. I think it was in one of those Get Ready With Me with Vogue videos. I'll try and find the clip. But I remember she was saying something about she likes to get ready really quickly and just be decisive and put something on, leave her face bare and go and spend her time. I think it was Paris Fashion Week. And she was like, now I can actually enjoy Paris and go out and experience the city rather than just sitting in hair and makeup chairs for hours and hours and hours, going to the show and leaving. She's actually giving herself a life. And that reminds me of this, if you want to talk about resistance, there's a movement in South Korea called Escape the Corset, which is all about rejecting expected beauty, because if you know South Korea, you know that the beauty standards are sky high. It's the beauty capital of the world, renowned for their skincare, very, very common that pretty much everybody has plastic surgery from a very young age. So Escape the Corset was about cutting their hair short, wearing more masculine outfits, not wearing makeup, not even doing skincare. People were calculating how many hours they'd spent on their appearance and kind of getting that time back. There's one more person that I want to highlight who I think is actually quite a good influence if you like the way Pamela Anderson dresses, and that is Franca Sozzani, who was the editor-in-chief at Vogue Italia before her very sad passing. But what I always loved about Franca's look is she also has that inner glow. She has this bright blonde, like angel hair. She never really wore much makeup. Her hair was always kind of just styled in waves, but looks very natural, very low effort. And then she just wore these very beautiful but very practical outfits that didn't upstage her in any way. And when I think about Franca and I think about Miuccia Prada and I think about now Pamela, what I think of that links them all together in terms of dressing is women who are running the show behind the scenes and do not need to be at the forefront and be the star, be the one commanding the room and commanding all the attention, which ironically has led Pamela to more attention and being more of a focus because it's so unusual to see someone do what she's doing. It actually also reminds me I think it was on Vogue Life in Looks. You can tell that I watch a lot of Vogue YouTube, but it was on, I think, Salma Hayek's Life in Looks. And she was talking about how as she's gotten older, her looks are a little bit more toned down. She still loves bold colours, but she no longer feels the pressure, and that's the key word, the pressure of being the most beautiful woman in the room when she goes to these events. And it is an immense pressure. Like, it's not an imagined pressure. Maybe some people are going to be like, here she goes. But I do think that Pamela Anderson also really embodies the French girl aesthetic because of that ease and because of that effortlessness that she now has. And I'm sure some people are cringing at me saying that and clutching their pearls, but it's true. Pamela lived around France for a while. There's also something in here to discuss about visibility because a lot of women over sort of 50 have expressed publicly that they start to feel invisible. Like, you hear that a lot, like you get to a certain age and you become invisible. And when I interviewed Ari Cohen, who is the founder of Advanced Style, he photographs women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even hundreds, mainly in New York, that have very eccentric and fabulous style. That topic obviously comes up a lot in the interviews that he does with the women. But he was telling me that for some women, dressing up was a way to refuse to become invisible. But there were a lot of women who actually said that being invisible was their right because they'd been visible for so many years and sort of held at ransom by these patriarchal beauty standards. I'm going to put the clip in because he said it far more eloquently than I'm saying it right now.
And there's another whole side of like that I hear from um especially women saying, well, I want to be invisible, like I've had to be visible my whole life and been like, I think was it Kathy Bates or something wrote an article about it, like just because of like the way that like the patriarchy and the way that women are treated and like just kind of like not wanting attention from men, that unwanted attention that they had been getting for decades, like, and it was kind of a relief to kind of like be able to let go and not have to like be seen anymore or like confronted by people. And so like there's like two sides, and really for me it's not like the visibility is just like honoring the fact that you exist and have something to share and your value in the world, so I think some people sometimes think that like when I talk about visibility that it's only like in the way that people express themselves and you have to like be loud and colorful, but it's really just about like knowing that you have a place, and that we respect you and are grateful for what you contribute to the world. So
Because flamboyance is obviously great and amazing, but I think the real reason that we love it is it's just nice to see people being themselves. And
yeah.
sometimes being yourself is more understated or is more minimal, but it's still just as valid, I think, as the full regalia. But if we want to talk about some actual clothes, this look that Ayo Edibri just wore by the row really gives Pamela Anderson. Couldn't you see her wearing this? And one thing that I love about Pamela Anderson's style is that of all the things that we know to be like Pamela Anderson signatures from the 90s, the one that she still wears is the giant hat. Here are some of her famous hat moments from back in the day. But then look, she wore this amazing Vivienne Westwood look that again was from her own wardrobe. She didn't bother wearing makeup, she just left her hair as it is, but she put on that huge hat and she knew what that meant to everybody. She knew that that was her way of saying, this is Pamela Anderson. And I think it was the right choice. She also employs a lot of masculine pieces. We see her in a lot of oversized suiting now. And I love this shoot she did recently for Glamour, which, what the hell, it was only a digital cover. This is a rare moment where she is in full glam, which shows that it's not always that serious. Just because she goes natural doesn't mean she can't still have fun with her image at a photo shoot or wherever she chooses to do it. Maybe I'm reading into this too much, but I kind of like the idea of Pamela Anderson always wearing these men's suits as a metaphor for her finally wearing the trousers in her own life. Because obviously we had the huge scandal with that awful series that I refused to watch about her and her ex-husband Tommy Lee. Do you want to know a secret? I actually have a Motley Crue tattoo. And that series was kind of the catalyst for this new Pamela that we see today that's definitely in the driver's seat of her life. So I kind of like how the masculine looks tie into that. Anyway, as usual, assess everything, see what resonates, go to your own wardrobe, play, and let me know how it goes.